Creatine isn't just for bodybuilders. It's actually an incredible women's health supplement that you can utilize to support your brain function, your muscle and body composition, your mood, your sleep, and so much more. Today, we're diving into the use of creatine and the importance of creatine overall when it comes to women's health through the different phases of womanhood, including premenstrual, reproductive years, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause. Let's talk about creatine. Now, creatine is one of the most underutilized supplements and nutritional aspects talked about for women's health. And today we're going to break down what it is, why we care about it, especially as women, and we have some great data to go off of. Now, recently, there was an article that came out in May of 2025 in the Journal of the International Society of Sports Nutrition called Creatine in Women's Health, Bridging the Gap from Menstruation Through Pregnancy to Menopause. Today, I'm going to be referencing that and kind of summarizing that article for you. This was a great summary of the research that we have to date about creatine, especially in women's health, and really goes through the different phases of womanhood and how creatine can be helpful there. And so we'll be summarizing that, talking about that, and really giving you some actionable tips to take away with your health when it comes to creatine. Now, if you've heard about creatine before, you probably associated it with gym bros and muscle building. But here's the truth. Creatine is not just for bodybuilders. It's actually one of the most well-researched, safe, and effective supplements out there, and it has huge benefits for women, especially when it comes to maintaining body composition, energy, mood, metabolism, and brain function. So, what is creatine exactly? Creatine is a compound your body naturally produces from amino acids. Those are the building blocks of proteins. It's stored in your muscles and your brain, and it acts like a backup battery for your cells. It helps you make energy quickly, especially during times of physical and mental stress, like a tough workout, a demanding workday, and even getting through your cycle. So, why does this matter for women? For one, women have lower stores than men when it comes to creatine. Creatine, again, is stored primarily in our muscle tissue. And because women tend to have less muscle, this can have a lower storage overall, meaning that we need to have more daily intake to get enough creatine and to really meet our needs. We also have hormonal influences when it comes to creatine metabolism. Estrogen seems to be a factor with creatine metabolism, and we may actually go through creatine faster when we have higher estrogen. Now, women, especially in our 30s and 40s and beyond, often are dealing with energy issues, muscle loss, mood swings, and brain fog. And this could largely be due to creatine because we naturally have lower stores. And so that means we may benefit even more from supplementing with it. Research shows that creatine can support healthy muscle mass, balanced mood, enhanced cognition, and even play a supportive role in fertility and pregnancy. It's also promising for perimenopause and menopause when estrogen drops and energy and sleep and strength can take a hit. Let's give you the bottom line right off the bat. Creatine is not just a workout supplement, it's a women's health supplement. And it could be one of the simplest, most affordable ways to support your body and brain across all phases of your life. If you're curious about adding creatine into your routine, I've got resources in the show notes. So let's walk through the phases of life and how creatine can be beneficial in each phase. Starting with the premenopausal reproductive years. This is when you're having a menstrual cycle regularly or fairly regularly. And this is where we really see creatine supplementation shine. There's a lot of research here. We know that there are different hormonal impacts at play with creatine metabolism, including our ability to synthesize, transport, and break down creatine. Now, one of the biggest factors that I mentioned when it comes to women and creatine is that our dietary intake of creatine is likely not enough for many women. We basically need about 13 milligrams per kilogram of body weight per day. This largely we're getting through foods if we're not supplementing them, and they're largely from meat. So, animal meat and fish are some of the biggest sources of creatine that you can get in your diet. This, of course, means that if you have a vegetarian or vegan diet, then you're much more at risk of being malnourished with creatine. So, supplementation can absolutely be helpful for all of us, but especially if you have that kind of diet. Now, we talked about creatine helping muscle mass, and it absolutely is the case. Creatine supplementation can support high intensity exercise and can actually delay your experience of fatigue, interestingly. Because again, creatine is helping with fast energy production, your ability for your cells to get energy. So it can be really helpful there. It can absolutely be supportive in building muscle and lean body mass. Creatine also supports cellular health and can increase the total body water by shifting water from outside of your cells into the inside of your cells, which is supportive for your overall cellular functioning. This can also be helpful with the feeling of bloating and water retention that often comes in the luteal phase. Now, there has been some research specifically with women in different phases of their cycle, and it seems like, especially in the luteal phase, this can be a really big benefit of creatine supplementation. Creatine is also really helpful with brain health. It can help with the metabolism of the brain cells and really seems to improve cognition as well as sleep. Now, we're a little bit limited with some of the data here, but it seems like the quality and continuity and quantity of sleep, meaning how much deep sleep you're getting, really restorative sleep, how long you're able to sleep without waking up, and being able to sleep continuously without having mid-evening or early morning wake ups. So it seems like there's a positive benefit there. Now, of course, there's some compounding factors here because if you're having better performance with workouts and you're having more resistance training, we know that those also help with sleep. So it's probably a mixed bag that they're helping, but it does seem like creatine, in addition to those other things, can be helpful when it comes to sleep. Now, interestingly, in pregnancy, it seems like creatine is playing a very important role as well. Now, there isn't data that I've seen with creatine supplementation in pregnancy. Of course, supplementation studies are really hard to do during pregnancy because no one wants to do any harm. But it does seem that creatine malnutrition, again, not getting enough dietary creatine, is really prevalent in pregnancy. And this does have an association with more poor outcomes in pregnancy. There was an evaluation of 2017 to 2020 NHANES data that found that women who consumed greater than or equal to 13 milligrams of creatine per kilogram body mass daily were at lower risk of obstetric conditions compared to those who consumed less than 13 milligrams of creatine daily. It also seems that adequate creatine consumption, about 7 to 8 milligrams per kilogram per day, in the first 1,000 days of life for an infant may also be critical in the long-term well-being of children. With further analysis done, it was showing that there was a significant relationship between dietary creatine consumption and head circumference in 0 to 2 year olds. So, meaning that if a child isn't getting quite enough creatine from their mom, this is largely through breast milk or if they're having supplemented formula, then it has a really big impact. Another interesting fact is that the inside of our uterus and placenta actually can synthesize creatine during pregnancy. So, this is likely a significant contributor to providing creatine for the developing fetus. And usually, when we see something being able to happen with our cells in our body, it means it's important. If something is concentrated in a certain area, usually it means it's really important in that area. So this suggests that creatine is really important when it comes to fetal development. And creatine levels are also highest in colostrum immediately after birth, before they drop off. So this also suggests that it's really important for a newborn baby to get a higher amount of creatine. And this also can make us wonder then, if formula doesn't have any creatine in it, if infants who are solely fed with formula could be not getting their needs. Again, there isn't a lot of data here. There is a big need for more data in this area, but it's really interesting to see how important it is. Now, again, maybe we would start supplementing with creatine during pregnancy without knowing more and having really more data behind it. But this is really important to suggest that maybe eating meat and getting enough creatine per day could be really important for your pregnancy outcomes and the outcomes of your baby. Now, perimenopause. This is that phase before you're actually in menopause. It's when hormones are getting pretty wild. Now, sadly, there is really no data to date on women in perimenopause and the use of creatine, which completely blows my mind. I have a lot of patient-based data, and heard a lot of great outcomes with my patients and N of one studies with people reporting that they feel great with it. But surprisingly, there isn't actual data here in this population. Now, we know that common side effects in perimenopause include metabolic changes that may lead to adverse adaptations in body composition, meaning usually we're gaining more fat, we're having a harder time keeping lean body mass and muscle. There are increased vasomotor symptoms like night sweats, hot flashes, and declines in mental health and cognition, forgetting where you left the keys, forgetting why you walked into the room, things like that. And this seems like it could be a really critical time for creatine because our creatine amount can really decrease in this phase also. Again, we unfortunately don't have direct data to state that, but we can really make some, I think, very valid statements about the importance of creatine in perimenopause until we have some more clear data. Now, there is a lot of data postmenopausally. So after you are done completely having periods, technically for at least a year as a definition, there have been several studies in women in that phase, and creatine supplementation does definitely offer significant benefits, particularly around maintaining muscle mass, improving strength, supporting bone health, enhancing cognitive function and mood. So again, through all phases of womanhood, it seems that creatine plays a really important role, and getting enough through our diet can be a really important approach to this. But supplementation is also super safe and effective at really boosting up your intake and getting what you need and getting the benefits. Again, the benefits include improved exercise performance, can help with reduced fatigue, better cellular energy availability, supports cellular hydration, supports cognitive function and brain energy metabolism. It can improve sleep quality. It also positively influences bone mineral density when paired with resistance training, especially, and can support positive mood. So I don't know about you, but I don't know a single person who wouldn't love to have a little bit of those benefits, especially when they're struggling with some hormonal symptoms. Now, let's talk a little bit about dosing. A lot of the studies done on creatine supplementation are done with a loading dose, which is typically 20 grams per day, broken up usually in 4 servings of 5 grams. And this is done over 5 to 7 days. It does seem to be the best way to increase muscle creatine stores as quickly as possible. Now, if you're not doing a loading dose, it seems that the equivalent time frame of just doing 5 grams daily would be about 3 to 4 weeks to gain that same concentration. So you can see that doing a loading dose can quickly increase your muscle stores and maybe get you some positive benefits sooner. But you don't necessarily need to. There is some debate about this. Some people recommend doing a loading dose, some don't. Lately in my practice, I haven't been requiring my patients to do a loading dose because I know that many women are worried about increased water retention, which could potentially happen for a short period of time, especially when you're doing a loading dose. So by not doing a loading dose, you may mitigate some of that and not feel like you're retaining a lot of water and feeling more puffy. So there's a choice there. For maintenance doses, I recommend 3 to 5 grams per day. This is also what's supported in the literature. And it does appear, a caveat is it does appear that slightly higher doses, about 15 to 20 grams per day for 5 to 7 days, followed by 5 to 10 grams, could be more optimal for increased brain concentrations of creatine. So especially if brain symptoms are your concern, then you may want to consider even doing a little bit of higher dosing. Now, again, this is for females. Sometimes they're recommending higher doses for men and cycling through different creatine levels. I'm not talking about that today. This is specifically for women and really supporting your overall well-being. If you're curious about adding creatine into your routine, I've got resources for you in the show notes. My recommended product is Thorne Creatine Monohydrate. There are so many great products out there, though. I just recommend making sure that you're using creatine monohydrate and not having anything else in the supplement. So you don't have to worry about the doses of other products in it or side effects, symptoms from other things in the product. I like to having it just pure. And what's really great about it is it comes in a powder, it's flavorless, so you could literally just mix it into water or whatever you want. I personally like mixing it into my water and electrolytes while I'm working out. This is a side note, it's maybe more male supported, but you might have even more muscle benefits when you take creatine after a workout. So it doesn't really matter either way, but that could help if, especially maintaining muscle mass is your priority. And as always, check with your provider before starting any supplement. You want to make sure it's right for you. Again, it's very safe, but if you have any health concerns, make sure to talk to your provider before starting this.